Yo, if you think the Knights Templar just magically vanished in the 13th century, you are honestly low-key Delulu. They didn't disappear at all. What actually happened was a massive, highly calculated rebrand. Today, we're talking about those absolute shadow networks that, believe it or not, basically built the modern world. In this deep dive, we are going to spill the tea on their truly glitchy and intense legacy. So, let's get into it. Okay, let's dive right into this. Back in 1307, when King Philip of France got super pressed and started targeting them, the Templars totally split up. The Normie Knights, they shaved their beards, burned those famous white cloaks, and just hid in plain sight as ordinary merchants. But the elite inner circle, oh, they had the real receipts. They managed to save the ancient blueprints and maps they originally dug up from way beneath Solomon's temple in Jerusalem.
Today's declassified blueprint looks like this. First, the Ultimate Templar rebrand. Second, the Freemasons and the Third Temple. Third, the Portugal Navy hack. Fourth, the Rosicrucians, basically the OG-007s. Fifth, the thugs of the subcontinent. And finally, number 6, the final vibe check.
All right, part 1, the Ultimate Templar rebrand, from Knights to Shadows. So here is the catalyst for the whole thing. In 1187, when Saladin took back Jerusalem, the Templars had to retreat to Acre. About a century later, they lost Acre too, leaving them completely homeless, and they eventually had to crawl back to France. But by 1307, King Philip was totally out to get them. Facing the loss of their territory and literal total annihilation, they had to evolve. They transformed from this highly visible military force into a total shadow network, guarding some seriously ancient, esoteric knowledge.
Moving to part 2, Freemasons and the Third Temple, the builders of the New World Order.
The Freemasons basically traded in their real-life swords for a compass and jumped straight into the construction biz. Why? To rebuild their main goal, the Third Temple in Jerusalem. What's really interesting here is how they hid their deep knowledge right in plain sight. You've definitely seen the Masonic compass and that letter G. People today will tell you it stands for God or geometry. But historically, that G actually links back to gnosis, which literally means hidden esoteric knowledge. And that compass? It's a flex, showing off their calculated, mathematical precision. And this ideology deeply infiltrated the very founding of America. Just think about that glowing pyramid and eye on the back of the dollar bill. That was the work of Benjamin Franklin, a 33rd degree Freemason. In fact, 15 U.S. presidents were confirmed Masons. Their ultimate goal wasn't just to build a physical structure. According to their blueprints, they were setting up a central throne to enforce a single, secular, new world order, completely wiping out traditional religious laws.
That brings us to part 3, the Portugal Navy hack, ocean currents and conquests.
Over in Portugal, the Templars rebranded themselves as the Order of Christ. Now, a standard 15th century ship would spend like 3 whole months blindly sailing along coastlines. But the Order of Christ, they possessed maps from Solomon's temple that charted the ocean's secret rivers like the Gulf Stream. They literally hacked a 3-month journey down to just 20 days. They even attached high-tech metals to their ships that acted like early sonar. Vasco da Gama didn't just accidentally discover India. His absolute precision was entirely based on these classified ancient maps. So the crucial point here is that Vasco da Gama was not just some random explorer. He was fulfilling a dark Templar crusade. He navigated directly to Calicut because he was after Kalari Payatu, an ancient martial art containing the knowledge of 108 fatal biomechanical points. Like, perfect for a secret assassin order, right? And that ruthless Templar mentality never faded. In 1502, he intercepted a ship called the Miri and burned it down with 400 pilgrims inside, just to assert absolute dominance. And guys, it gets even darker. Take Pedro Alvarez Cabral, who supposedly discovered Brazil by mistake, which according to treaty records was basically impossible. They knew exactly where they were going. Once there, he implemented ad noctem, which is Latin for in darkness. They used something called the pillar's punishment, where they would tie resistance leaders to a pillar, surrounded by occult geometric symbols, and sacrifice them in the dead of night. This wasn't about justice. This was a terrifying ritual to bind the souls of their victims to the dark world.
All right, part 4. Rosicrucians, the OG-007, alchemy and espionage.
Based in Germany and the UK, this group's ultimate symbol was the Ouroboros. The circle represents infinity, and the snake represents evil. Literally, infinite evil. This highly secretive group managed to infiltrate European royalty by promising kings that they had alchemical powers to turn base metals into gold and grant eternal youth. It was the ultimate psychological hook, allowing them to quietly lay the invisible foundations of the British Empire. Their top, most brilliant operative in England was Sir John Dee. He was Queen Elizabeth I's top advisor and an alleged magician. And get ready for this massive reveal. Whenever he wrote secret letters to the Queen, he signed them 007. The 2 zeros meant for your eyes only, and the 7 was a sacred alchemical number. Ian Fleming, who actually worked in British intelligence himself, literally based his iconic James Bond character on this exact Templar wizard. Absolutely wild, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates how dark occult practices literally shaped modern British intelligence. Sir John Dee claimed to use a black obsidian mirror in the Queen's court to communicate with non-human entities. He's also the guy who established Greenwich Mean Time, giving the Crown total control over global maritime navigation. He even wrote a book called Manus Hieroglyphica, packed with 40,000 encrypted characters. When experts finally decoded them in the 1990s, they weren't just gibberish, they were highly advanced algorithmic codes.
Number 5. Thugs of the Subcontinent, the Shadows of the Silk Route.
So, the Templars who escaped via the Silk Route into India and Pakistan quickly realized that to survive under massive powers like the Mughal Empire, they had to become absolute shadows. Once there, they merged with exiles who worshipped dark entities, specifically the Kapalikas, or skull-bearers. Together, they formed a terrifying society that history remembers as the Thugs. They would pose as merchants, infiltrate trading caravans, build deep trust, and then use a secret animal sound language called Ramasi to coordinate their strikes in perfect silence.
Instead of using massive swords, their entire system was built on stealth and dark magic. Their primary weapon? A simple yellow silk handkerchief. They used it to instantly strangle their victims so that not a single drop of blood would hit the ground, believing this would appease their dark goddess Kali. They even used a farming hoe to dig graves at highly specific occult geometric angles. It was a perfectly designed, completely untraceable system of sacrifice.
931. That is the staggering, honestly horrifying number of victims sacrificed by just a single assassin, Thug Behram. This shadow network operated untouched for centuries. It wasn't until the 1830s that a British officer named William Henry Sleeman finally cracked their code. Instead of making blind arrests, Sleeman meticulously mapped their family trees, learned the Ramasi language, and turned them against each other, finally dismantling a 300-year-old killing machine. Finally, Part 6, the final vibe check, finding the true light. All right, it's time for a serious vibe check. We've gone through all the glitchy, terrifying lore of these secret societies, but there's a massive lesson we need to pull from this. When people cross boundaries chasing after hidden powers, esoteric secrets, and satanic paths, they aren't actually acquiring knowledge, they're literally just buying darkness. It's a complete illusion that promises you're special, that you possess dark arts that the normies don't have. We really shouldn't get lost in the sauce of the occult. The history of these societies is a history of false power, dark magic, and secret covenants that only bring destruction. The ultimate truth here is that true power and absolute protection don't come from some secret 33rd degree handshake or an alchemical mirror. They belong solely to the Creator. The whole point of seeking true knowledge should be to increase our faith and humility, not our arrogance. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. In your own life and curiosities, are you chasing the dark, empty promises of secret societies? Or are you seeking the kind of knowledge that brings true light? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you enjoyed journeying through the shadows of history today, definitely hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries. See you in the next one. Peace.